Good evening. You guys ready to go back to the future and find Jesus in the Old Testament? That's the series that we've been continuing, and I am so excited to be sharing the third installment of this series. But before we get started, I want to say a very, very special Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in attendance tonight. I'm looking right at them. Yep. Happy Mother's Day. As you guys may have seen on our social networks, here at Momentum, we put moms first. Momentum. Get it? Yeah. Ha, courtesy laugh. Well, on that note, let's get started. I don't know about you, but this series has been very encouraging for me to find Jesus in the Old Testament. It's been encouraging to see and to hear and to interact with Jesus in the Old Testament, and it's also encouraging to see the consistency of God's character through the entire Bible. God does not compromise, and He doesn't change. He literally is unchangeable. And even though God is unchangeable, what I have noticed is many of us, we tend to change a lot. It feels kind of like human nature to flip-flop, to change, to compromise. If we need an example, we don't need to look any further than our elected officials, right? As people, we hem and we haw and we go back and forth on things and we just compromise. We'll make a commitment to follow Jesus, and yet we are tempted to allow ourselves a couple of safe sins that just won't hurt anyone because nobody will know. In our relationships with one another, instead of listening to try to really understand each other and talk things through, we get tempted to rush to a compromise so that we can get this unpleasant conversation over sooner. Sometimes as parents, we'll threaten to discipline disobedient children if they don't change their behavior, and yet we'll let the behavior continue 2, 3, 4, 5 more times before we actually do anything to stop it. We compromise. As employees at work, we're tempted to do everything we can to not get fired and nothing more. You know, sometimes we just fly under the radar or we cut corners because we compromise. In fact, in every aspect of our lives, we're tempted to compromise. But you know, even though we may struggle with this temptation to compromise, isn't it great to know that God's Word has something to say about this issue? And for a bonus tonight, it's also a Jesus sighting in the Old Testament. So for those of you that would like to follow along with tonight's story, with tonight's biblical passage, if you will, we're going to be in Daniel chapter 3. And eventually I'm going to be reading from verses 19 through 25. But tonight I'm trying something different. I really wanted to show you guys a visual clip of this particular passage of Scripture, but it's too graphic. It's too gory for the children that are in the audience. So what I did is, this is a new first for me, I hid a sermon Easter egg on Facebook. So if you go to my Facebook page right now, you can see the visual that I would like you to see on your smartphone or your tablet or your smart device, and you can watch it as I'm telling the story here in the Bible. So hopefully this way you can interact with the Bible a little bit more. But you just go to my Facebook page and you'll see the last post on there is a video that I would have loved to show you tonight, but it's really for adult eyes only. But have you guys heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Yeah? In VeggieTales speak, they were known as Rack, Shack, and Benny, right? For those of you the VeggieTales fans. But the story goes that these 3 men were righteous followers of God. And they were living in Babylon as an exiled people of Judaism. They were Jews living in Babylon, and they were under captivity at this time. And while they were in captivity, the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, erected this huge gold statue, and he commanded everybody to worship the statue. But these 3 guys, because they worshiped God alone, wouldn't bow down and worship the statue. Now, this was kind of like a national thing. This was like the national Nebuchadnezzar church, the national idol, if you will. And so they would actually ring out and start playing with the harps and the lyres and the flutes, and people would hear the music, and they would be like, okay, it's time to bow down and pray towards Nebuchadnezzar's statue. These guys would just stand, and they wouldn't bow down. So if we pick up the story here in chapter 3, verse 19, Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There's nothing like being incarcerated by special forces, huh? And he cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments. They were fully clothed, and they were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was so urgent and the furnace was exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up. Now, these weren't the wimps. These were the special forces guys. And the tough guys walking them up there got burned to death. So that says a lot to me, first of all, that they're protected before they even get in the fire. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" And they answered the king, "True, O king." "Look," he answered, "I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the 4th person is like the form of the Son of God." Nebuchadnezzar saw the Son of God. He testified to seeing Jesus. And I think the Bible series did a very powerful job of displaying that. It's very graphic, but at the same time, they show you that it's Jesus who's in the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This is a miracle. It's miraculous. It's a visitation by Jesus in the Old Testament yet again. Only this time, he isn't referenced by some alias like he was, like I believe he was when he was referenced as Melchizedek. All right? This time, he's actually authentically picked out of a lineup by somebody who doesn't even believe in God. He says, that looks like the Son of God right there. This is huge. Hundreds of years before his birth on earth, Nebuchadnezzar came to know that Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus appeared to the entire nation of Babylon and its king. And why did Jesus show up? Because 3 people were faithful to follow Jesus even when the rest of the known world bowed to a local king and culture. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't physically see Jesus prior to their fiery furnace experience. And yet they still trusted by faith that God would protect them and preserve them. And even if God chose to let them burn, they were resolved to keep their commitment to God. In fact, listen to the words they actually said to King Nebuchadnezzar right before they were thrown into the fire. "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If it's the case that we are going to be thrown into the fiery furnace, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your king, O hand. But if not, let it be known, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up." Basically, they said, God's going to protect us, and even if he chooses not to, we're committed to follow him alone, even to death. No compromise. They did not compromise. What would have happened if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego just said to themselves, you know what? We don't want to rock the boat here. The whole nation is doing this. Let's just go through the motions and pretend to bow down and worship this God. It's not like the gold statue is actually God. You know, it's really just a false image. And besides, God knows how we really feel. God knows my heart. God knows our hearts, right? How many times have you and I said something similar? I don't want to rock the boat here at work. If I speak up, I might lose my job. Besides, God knows my heart. He knows how I really feel. I don't want to cause a big scene here at this family gathering. If I say something, I might offend someone. Besides, God and most of my family know how I really feel. God knows my heart. I don't want to say no to my girlfriend or my boyfriend. You know, they have physical needs, and they might leave me if I say no. God knows I want to obey his commands regarding sexuality, but and he knows I even want to marry this person. God knows my heart. It's no big deal. I don't want to take away my kids' favorite toys. If I follow through with this discipline, my parents are going to be so upset because they got them that awesome gift for Christmas. God knows I want to raise obedient children. He knows my heart. You know, I don't want to comment with a Jesus-related perspective on this comment string on social networks. I'm going to open up a huge Pandora's box if I do, and I'll get a ton of criticism. Besides, they didn't ask for my opinion, and I don't want to come across as a religious nut job. God knows how I really feel about this matter, and those people probably do too. Or maybe it's this: I don't want to lose my house. God knows I can't afford to give 10%, let alone 1%. I want to give, but I can't give what I don't have. God knows my heart. He knows my intentions. Or I'm not going to say anything about this issue right now. Everyone who shares an opinion on it gets blasted. And besides, it's way too big of an issue to try to unpack here and now. God knows how I really feel about this. How many times do we compromise in our everyday lives? You know, if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would have compromised, they would have never been put in the fiery furnace. And Jesus would not have been revealed in the Old Testament to them, or to Babylon, or to King Nebuchadnezzar, or to you and me tonight here as we explore this experience of Jesus revealing himself in the Old Testament. And so that brings us up to our one and only point tonight. If you're somebody that likes to tweet something from church, these 4 words are the point tonight. Faithful followers reveal Jesus. It's that simple. Faithful followers reveal Jesus. It's when we're going through critical times in our life, when there's fire all around us, that if we will remain faithful, that's when Jesus shows up and reveals himself, not only to us, but to those of us around us. When we refuse to compromise, that's when Jesus is glorified. And just as faithful followers reveal that's true for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it's also true for us. But one of the things that's kind of a twist on this is that the opposite is also true. Faithless fans conceal Jesus. So the question for us tonight, the question that we need to wrestle with is, are we going to be a concealer or a revealer of Jesus? Or maybe we're a little bit of both right now. You know, it's possible for us to be a combination. We reveal Jesus where we're comfortable and we conceal him where we're not. You know, for instance, some people are a family revealer and a workplace concealer. What I've noticed is that most of us tend to treat Jesus like he's a job. We put in our time, but it feels like a chore. We punch the clock, and after we've met our Jesus quota, we celebrate with me time. And that's doing whatever makes us feel good, regardless of what God says about it, because God knows our hearts. But Jesus isn't a job. He's a person who wants a 24/7 relationship with you. And no, it's not 24 hours a week, 7 months out of the year. It's 24 hours a week, 7 days a week. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I just want to testify that I'm not perfect. You know, this Old Testament Jesus sighting by Nebuchadnezzar shows us that faithful followers reveal Jesus and faithless fans conceal Jesus. So how will we choose to respond tonight? How will we move forward in our everyday lives? What will we choose to put into practice? What would happen if we resolved to commit our lives to Jesus and we refuse to compromise? What would our lives be like if we practice following Jesus the same way that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. Faithful in all things, even to the point of death. And there's a lot of different ways that we can die. Everybody's familiar with physical death. We all know that that's a sure thing, death and taxes, right? But we can die emotionally. We can die spiritually. We can die socially. There's so many different ways that we can experience a death or a loss in our everyday lives. Are we committed to following Jesus, even at the risk of losing some social standing with this group of friends or at this group of coworkers, in our workplace, in our schools? Will we risk it all to follow? Will we follow Jesus 24/7? What if we did that and put away our spiritual time cards? Would we see Jesus revealed in the midst of our challenges, in the midst of our fires? Would our friends and our family and our coworkers, would our acquaintances, and even our king, the king of this country, see another person standing beside us whose form was like that of the Son of God? Jesus revealed himself on behalf of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And everyone saw Jesus. Everyone saw him. Jesus will show up for you and me too. All he needs is a few faithful followers who will refuse to compromise. Faithful followers reveal Jesus, and revealers of Jesus help change lives forever. I'm hoping there's one more way that we can make this point stick tonight. And before we move into a time of discussion and talking about this message, my youngest daughter, Priscilla, is having a hard time growing up to be a big girl. And she is relying a lot on the movie Frozen. Have any of you guys seen Frozen? I've probably seen it well over 100 times, maybe 150 times. I've heard it at least. We're kind of using it as therapy for her, and since she loves it and calms down to it, it's been something that's been on 24/7 in my home, it seems like. And I hear it in my sleep. I hear it when I wake up. I hear it, in the middle of the night. I finally had to start putting the sleep timer on the TV because it would just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. It's like it was a demon that possessed me. But because I've been so affected by this movie, I figured let's take a little snapshot from this movie and see if we can help stick this point in our brains a little bit more. Do you guys remember Elsa's father? In the beginning, he gives her some advice, some terrible, terrible advice from a parental standpoint. He tells her with this frozen power that she now has to shoot out this frozen stuff from her hands, he says, conceal it, don't feel it, don't let it show, right? Terrible advice from parents. Well, tonight's message, what we saw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego do was they reveal him, don't conceal him, let Jesus show. Okay? So hopefully that will help stick this point in your mind that God wants us to reveal Jesus and not to conceal him and to let Jesus show in our everyday lives. And that's what we're called to do as followers. We're called to be committed no matter what. And if we are committed to follow faithfully, Jesus shows up and people's lives are changed as a result of it. Miracles happen if we will faithfully follow.